Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and get started with tonight's presentation. I cannot see comments typically once I share my screen. So if anybody has anything, please unmute yourself and speak up. And I will try to remember to check the Facebook comments, but I also don't always remember to do that. So I make no promises. So on that note, let me get my screen shared here. Share screen. Audience window. Sorry, guys. I'll figure it out. Past for a minute. Going to get out of sharing screen. For 1 second. Oh, this is so bad. Okay. Try this again. Go to Zoom meeting and share screen. Basically. Okay. Hopefully it's working. I can't really tell. If anybody knows, please let me know. But I did have a question come up in the Facebook group about what to look for on nutrition labels. So I hope to get through this in like 20 minutes. So I don't take up too much of your time tonight. But this will just be a quick general overview and then some typical pitfalls and whatnot to look for when it comes to nutrition labels. Now, the FDA did just overhaul the nutrition label and trying to make it a lot more self-explanatory and applicable to what we see in 2022, for example. And so we'll get into that in just a minute. So but first, I just want you guys to kind of understand real quick what the main macros are. And you've probably heard of macro tracking, or you may not have ever heard of macro tracking, but basically what that amounts to is the three main macros are protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Those are typically your like three things that contribute calories to any given food, meal, whatnot. You can see the kind of description for each one of them. I think most of us understand kind of what a protein is. You can think like meats, cheeses, a lot of, dairy is high in protein, that type of thing. Very important for the body. Body cannot manufacture protein on its own. So we definitely need to have enough of this in our diet. Protein by itself has 4 calories per gram. Carbohydrate is also 4 calories per gram. These are your sugar, starches, fibers, that type of thing. Carbohydrates are typically very demonized in our society unfairly. So it's really they don't deserve the bad rap they get. And if anybody tells you you have to completely eliminate carbohydrates out of your diet to lose weight, they are misinformed, slightly crazy, or very old school. And then fat. Fats are what we typically know what fats are, but you can see that they are over double the calories that are in carbohydrates and proteins. So when you think about foods, they are very energy dense. So you're also going to have less volume of food for about double the calorie amount. And so here is the new nutrition label. When you are first looking at a nutrition label, you always want to look and see what the serving size is, how many servings per container are there, and then the total calories per serving. So all nutrition labels will list the calories per serving. With the new labels, occasionally they will list the calories per serving and in the entire package. If the entire package isn't like too different than the actual calories per serving, then they will go ahead and provide that information too, because they assume most people are going to, consume the whole package. Or things we used to see this in was like the bottles of, like regular Coke or whatever. They used to split those up by like 2 servings and everybody drank the whole bottle. So it was kind of silly. So now they have to put a bigger emphasis on providing calories and nutrients and macro breakdowns for the entire package if it's a smaller package. So always look at the serving size. When it comes to the actual serving size, a lot of times you'll just see things in cups. It's a volumetric measurement, but they will also give a weight in grams. So if you are somebody that's really getting diligent about your food tracking, if you have never gotten a food scale and weighed your food out to compare it to what you can measure out in a cup, that will be a very eye-opening experience for you. The kind of gold standard thing I like to tell everybody for this is, so a typical serving size of peanut butter is 180 calories for 2 tablespoons. So 90 calories a tablespoon. I don't know about you, but if I measure out a tablespoon of peanut butter and put it in a tablespoon, it's probably going to be closer to probably 2 tablespoons per tablespoon, if that makes any sense. But if you weigh that, I think it weighs 32 grams on a food scale is considered a serving size. So it is very, very easy to use more or, take out more peanut butter than what the typical serving size is. So you really have to pay attention to the weight if you want to be very accurate with your foods. I'm not saying everybody needs to weigh their food, and you particularly do not need to weigh your food forever. If you ever just do it for a period of time, to kind of learn and eyeball and adjust your brain to seeing like what a weight of a food versus the calories, it can be a good learning experience. So these things here in the middle here kind of tell you what is all different about the new labels, and realize that the calories again are per serving, not per package. So you can see out of this label, there are 8 servings per container, whatever this food label is for. So if you ate the entire container, it would actually be 8 times this number here. Total fat, they will break out trans fats now. But really all you need to be concerned about is just the total fat grams. Obviously we don't want to eat a bunch of foods that are high in trans fat for health purposes. And then same with carbohydrates. They will tell you the total carbohydrate number. They will break out the fiber. They will break out sugars because they now have to break out added sugars. So lots of natural foods themselves will have sugar in them, and sugar gets very demonized, unfairly so again, but people need to be concerned about added sugars. So you may see, like for example, like milk. Obviously milk is a pretty healthy thing for most people. Milk has lactose. Lactose is a sugar that naturally occurs in dairy. So that's going to be in the total sugars number. But if it was, for example, chocolate milk, well, chocolate milk has actual sugar added to it to make it even sweeter. So added sugars are really the number you need to be aware of, not just sugars. And also dietary fiber. Obviously, you want to eat things with fiber. It's very, very good. Most of us don't get enough fiber. You want to figure about 10 to 14 grams of fiber per about 1,000 calories you consume is a good amount. But dietary fiber gets to be very interesting on food labels. So we will go into that. Protein here, just protein is straightforward, just the number to track for protein. So if you're tracking macros, you absolutely track total fat grams, total carbohydrate grams, not net carbohydrates, which I'll get into that in a minute. You want to track all carbohydrates and total protein grams. Some things that they did change now is they are putting a bigger emphasis on potassium and vitamin D. And I think I touch a little bit on that at the very end. And then when it comes to the ingredient list, they are by FDA requirements, they have to put the things that are in the highest amount first on the ingredient list. So if it appears up front, you can assume there's more of that ingredient in the food. And if it's at the bottom of the list, there's going to be less of it. Okay, what about alcohol? Actually, alcohol is the 4th macronutrient, although it's hard to say that it's a macronutrient because it's empty calories. It provides no nutritional value, largely has detrimental health, consequences, although there's different research studies and whatever that, like drinking reasonable amounts of wine and whatnot with your friends relieves stress, has health benefits for that. So I'm not by any means, I'm not opposed to anybody drinking alcohol, but what you have to understand is that the actual alcohol in a beverage is actually 7 calories per gram. I'm going to show you some labels here of how to look at most alcoholic beverages won't provide you a nutrition label. They don't necessarily have to. But this gets a little touchy because they will list the calories if they list anything, and they may list the carbs, but the carbs won't add up to the calories. But most people will just look at it and be like, oh, this is 3 carbs. Well, it's nothing, but you forget that alcohol grams in the drink itself are actually 7 calories per gram. So here's a couple of examples. So these truly the spiked seltzers and whatnot are very, very popular. You can see this one does have a nutrition label with it. So 100 calories, 3 grams carbohydrates. The sugar is included in that 3 grams. So it's not additional. So 3 grams carbohydrates are 4 calories per gram. That's 12 calories. Well, where is the rest of, this 100 calories coming from? So 100, minus 12 is 88. Do the math, 7 calories per gram, and then you are going to roughly get to this number with rounding, which is the 5% alcohol in that beverage. So if you are going to accurately track your calories, you cannot track, if you're tracking macros, you cannot just track 3 grams of sugar because you're missing out on all the extra calories that come from the grams of alcohol. So just something to be aware of, or at the very least, incorporate 100 calories into your calorie tracking. Same thing with like Bud Light. Light beers typically are lower in carbs. So you may think like, oh, I'll just track 7 grams of carbs. Well, 7 times 4 is 28. Well, it's not 28 calories, it's 110 calories because of the alcohol. So here's a little tricky thing. So if you're tracking macros, you are by default tracking calories. This is assuming no alcohol. If you're tracking calories, you aren't necessarily tracking macros. So if you just use calories on food labels and that's all you, wrote down as a total amount, you may actually not be accurately tracking your calories. Now, if you track your macros, protein, carbs, fats, we're going to eliminate alcohol for the sake of simplicity here. If you tracked protein, carbs, and fats, the total amount, not net carbs, then you would be getting total calories. And that's hard for people to probably wrap their heads around right now. And I don't know that it's really important other than just to know it's something to be aware of. And I'll go into some examples here in a little bit of why. But part of the reason why is that per FDA guidelines, they can actually subtract sugar, alcohols, and fiber out. So if the total calories will include, the total carbohydrates will include sugar, alcohols, and fiber in the total carbohydrate number. But when it comes to those carbohydrates being reflected in the total calorie number, the FDA allows them to subtract any calories from fiber. And then these words here are all words for what may be sugar alcohol. So in a lot of like sugar-free foods or keto processed diet food kind of things, you're going to see a lot of these. And actually, if you consume a lot of these in excess, like you're going to have some gut problems because they blow up people's guts in excess. Also, where labels get tricky is the FDA actually allows about 20% margin of error. So on their labels. So if you have 100-calorie food, it really could be the one that you're eating could be 80 calories or it could be 120 calories. That's just what the FDA allows. So it's hard to get really nailed down on that. Also, FDA allows rounding of, you'll see as we go on, oh, right here. So calories, like if it's fewer than 5 calories per serving, you can round that down to 0 calories. This is why like gum, Tic Tacs, some of those like quick oil sprays, you know, that the used for like pan sprays or whatever, they say 0 calorie, but that doesn't mean it's 0 calorie. It's just per serving. So if you spray your whole pan down with that spray, you know, I think they say like a serving size is like half a second spray. Well, what if you spray it for 5 seconds? Well, it's not 0 calorie anymore. You're actually contributing calories to that. So, you know, these are also things that like, I don't think you need to like think this is earth shattering and then your life is over, but it's also things to be aware of. Like all this stuff that is allegedly calorie free on a label doesn't actually mean it's calorie free if your serving size is going into excess. So, and same thing, they can round servings per container, but that's not quite as important as the calories per serving, in my opinion. Okay, so here's an example. Quest bars, that's a very, very popular protein bar. And actually, I like them. I don't love them, but I do like them. I find them convenient. When I'm at horse shows, this is usually my breakfast because you don't have to refrigerate it. I don't have to cook anything. If I'm getting up at 3 a.m. or 6 a.m., I can grab it, go eat it. You know, it's just easy. That's about the only time I eat them. But I do eat them, but let's look at this here. So total fat, 9 grams. I have this down here, 9 grams of fat times 9 calories per gram is 81 calories. I hope I did all my math right here. Total carb, 16 grams, 16 grams of carb time 4 calories per gram of carbs is 64 calories. And then you can see the protein, same thing, 17 grams of protein times 4 calories is 68 calories. So that's actually 215 calories, but they are reflecting 180 calories. So if you were just counting calories, you're going to put 180 calories, not 215 calories. The issue is that they have subtracted this number, this fiber, 9 grams of fiber. So 9 times 4, they have subtracted out, you know, roughly 36 calories. And again, they round. So that's where the difference comes from. And it's like fiber. Well, if you really want to get deep in the weeds on fiber, the keto people say fiber doesn't count. So they will all count it out. But really, fiber doesn't contribute no calories. It just contributes less calories. It depends on if it's soluble versus insoluble fiber. We don't have to delineate between that on the labels. So they just go with fiber in general and allow you to subtract it out. Soluble fiber does have like 2 to 3 calories per gram. So it's not calorie free. Insoluble fiber typically has very little calories. So, I mean, like while it's not maybe 4 calories per gram, it's not calorie free. So there is a difference. So whenever I'm talking to somebody about if they're really looking at macros specifically, like you need to track total carbs, not net carbs. You're kind of like shorting yourself. You're going through all this trouble of like doing all of this. Don't short yourself by tracking net carbs. Okay, so here's another thing where labels get kind of sketch, and I'm going to go into a lot of different things, but protein's like a big buzzword. It's a health halo type thing. And these are examples that Cheat Day Design has provided. He does a lot of great graphics. I want to give him credit, but here is regular Cheerios and high protein Cheerios. But you can see the difference here is one serving of protein Cheerios is 55 grams, 200 calories, 7 grams of protein. But if you, which basically in this example is equating to like half a serving of protein Cheerios is equivalent to one serving of the regular Cheerios. So basically, if you just doubled the serving of regular Cheerios, your macros are pretty dang close to the same. So you're not like getting a ton of them, a lot of amount of extra protein you're going to pay more for this Cheerios with protein. And the way they're coming up with this 11 grams here is because since you're doubling or having a bigger serving, they're saying like you're going to use more milk too. And actually milk is a good source of protein. So that's really where this 11 grams is coming from. But you really have to watch serving size and the calories and the macros provided, because if you equate serving size, like these are basically the same food, but you're going to pay more for this one. So just beware there. Same thing here. Regular peanut butter, high protein peanut butter, 2 tablespoons, same serving size here, same fat, carbs are roughly the same. How, you can see 1 gram of carb more here, 2 grams of protein, 2 whole grams of protein is what this makes this protein peanut butter. You're also going to pay more for this one. So I don't really think it's worth paying for. 2 grams of protein is not really moving the needle. Of course, we care about like protein in a total meal, not just one food of it, and then more so protein for your total day. But if you're relying on either one of these as a source of protein alone in a meal, like neither one of them are enough. Ideally, you have between 20 to 30 grams of protein per feeding. Okay. So here's another example, and these Mission tortillas really gets kind of dicey. So these carb balance flour tortillas are kind of their quote low carb tortillas. They have a protein tortilla, and they say plant powered, which here nor there on whether or not you care about if it's plant based or not. So serving size is the same, calories are the same, good there. Total fat's the same. Carbohydrates a little bit different. Again, protein 2 grams more. So they're high protein tortilla, which again, you're probably going to pay for because grocery stores love to charge for more protein. You're getting 2 grams more. That's it. And so to get really interesting, this is one I like to give people, and was like, what do you see here? First of all, this is a new label. This is an old label, but for whatever reason, Mission Tortilla does not have their new label on their website that I could find. So we're going to go with the old label. So obviously there's a big difference in total calories, 140 calories, 70 calories. Total fat's the same. Let's look at total carbohydrates. This 19 times 4, 76 grams. 5 times 4 is, 19 times 4 is really 76 calories. 5 times 4 is 20 calories. 3 times 9 is 27 calories. And that's 123 total calories. But again, they subtracted out this fiber. So they are reflecting the calorie amount of the total calories minus the fiber calories. So again, like we don't want to necessarily believe that this is just 70 calories. It's really about 120 or 123 calories. And you're saying, okay, well, we'll say 120 calories. Still less than this one, which is 140 calories. But look at the serving size, 43 grams, 49 grams. And that, if I did my math correctly, is about, this one is about 87% of the serving size as this one. Now, if you do the math to equate the serving size, so we'll take 123 calories times 1.13 to equate the serving size, equal that out. Well, then this one all of a sudden becomes 139 calories. Well, looky there. They're pretty much closely the same dang thing. Literally, like 1 calorie different if we just don't do this like crazy math gymnastics that they do to put it on a label. So this is the stuff like you guys, it pays you to be aware of how they can manipulate the labels to still serve them. Now, the FDA did make this a little bit tougher here this year with these new labels, but still, this is still happening. Okay, so then we're going to go into just like real quickly these common things you can see on labels and what they actually mean, because they may surprise you. Sugar-free. The term suggests that products labeled this way would be completely free of sugar, but they can actually contain up to 0.5 grams of sugar in a single serving size. So again, it just comes down to how much of it at one time are you going to eat. And then also remember that if something is completely sugar-free, they're going to make up for that in the texture and the taste with something, and it's usually to add more fat. Obviously, sugar-free, fat-free Jell-O doesn't have added fat, so that's a bad example. But if you look at candies and whatnot, they will always, always, always have higher fats. And to back up on that point, a lot of times because of that, they will, if you actually compare the total calorie amount, they will be the same calorie equivalent or higher, even though they're quote sugar-free. So don't just assume sugar-free means lower calorie on everything. Low carb. Here's a real kicker. The FDA does not have any guidelines for the labeling of foods as low carb. For this reason, the label can be used on virtually any product. So what does low carb mean? Whatever they want it to mean. They can slap it on anything. Gluten-free is not too much of a crazy one. Just the product must contain less than 20 parts per million of gluten, although the label is voluntary, so they're not required to put it on. But usually in today's day and age, if it is gluten-free, then it's something that's going to be a marketing thing, so you are going to see it. Light is another one that's like very hard to define what light means, but basically it means just merely in comparison to the average of that type of food. So here's another example. A light bread does not have to meet particular standards of calorie, fat, or cholesterol content on its own. It just simply has to be better than the average bread. So there's a lot of things that you could like, say that is light. That still doesn't mean it's healthy. It's just a little bit better than the average. Here you'll see fat-free things, reduced fat things, low fat things. What does all this mean? Fat-free has to be basically less than 0.5 grams for the referenced amount customarily consumed. So like the normal serving size has to have less than a half a gram of fat. Low fat has to have less than 3 grams of fat per serving. And then just reduced or less fat just has to have 25% less than what the normal quote food would be like. Whole grains, multigrain. This is another one that can get kind of tricky. If it's something that says 100% whole ... you're usually pretty safe. All the rest of these can be a little bit iffy. And if you like multigrain means nothing. It could be all refined flour. It just came from multigrains. And you can see like good source of whole grain. The only requirement's 15 to 25% whole grain. If it doesn't say 100% whole grain, it just says whole grain. It can be as little as 51% whole grain flour. Excuse me. Natural and organic, these are big buzzwords in our world for sure. And basically the takeaway, you can read these here, but slapping a natural or organic label on a food does not delineate that they are more healthier than any other food. People equate natural and organic to being labels of healthy foods, and that's just not the case. So when it comes to organic, it's basically about what approved pesticides are, which organic foods still use pesticides. Don't kid yourself. They don't. And natural just largely means like color additives and different things, but that it still does not determine the quote healthiness of the food. So the average consumer, they've done several research studies that if the average consumer thinks that if they see either one of these labels, they automatically assume it's going to be healthier, and it's just not the case. So you guys need to just, do your research, be educated, be informed. Don't get, pigeonholed into the marketing and fall into their traps. I don't care, personally what anybody does or doesn't do, if you're informed and you know how to make the right decision. So that's really what matters when it comes down to labeling. The first part on how to really navigate the labels and make sure you're tracking your calories accurately, if that's a priority of yours, and for example, a fat loss phase or whatnot, then something you need to definitely be aware of there. These other kind of marketing buzzword phrases, they're just good, education to know as a consumer. So that is 30 minutes. I don't have anything else there. So if anybody has any questions for me, and I will try and check the Facebook group. Otherwise, I will, of course, post the recording in the Facebook group, and everybody's always free to ask any questions there. And I'm happy to clear up anything that I didn't cover. Oh, I did forget one slide, and I can just cover this real quickly while I'm sitting here. Things that we should focus getting more of is fiber. Of course, fiber, we get not enough fiber, vitamin D, calcium, iron, potassium. So vitamin D, they have proven that helps prevent osteoporosis. Potassium, they have actually studied and researched that unless you have like extreme hypertension issues, but instead of being so concerned about your calcium levels, if you just make a priority to consume foods with more potassium in them, you can actually improve your blood pressure levels on it all by just intaking more potassium. And there's a lot of veggies and fruits and whatnot that are full of potassium. Be mindful of saturated fat, the excess sodium, and added sugars. So saturated fat are those types that tend to clog arteries and whatnot more. Sometimes these are red meats. So eat your red meats or fatty red meats in moderation. Enjoy everything in moderation. I don't think you should ever have to take anything out of your diet. Excess sodium, again, if you eat a lot of processed, frozen, prepackaged foods, you're going to have a lot of sodium. And how much sodium does the average person need? They say 3 to 5 grams. Most labels will give it in milligrams. So, there's 1,000 milligrams per gram. So, you're looking at 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams per day. Seems like a lot, but if you eat all fast food or all frozen food, all prepackaged food, you're going to hit that number and then some. And then just the added sugars. Again, like lactose, fructose, those aren't bad things. Fructose is the natural sugar in fruit. Lactose is the natural sugar in dairy products. High fructose corn syrup is not the same as fructose. High fructose corn syrup is what is processed and highly sweetened, and I believe combined with glucose or sucrose. I'm blanking on that, so don't quote me there. But yeah, so that's all I had for tonight, everybody. I'm happy to answer any questions. Hope this helped. Hope it provides some more information for you guys, and we will talk soon.